This is my go-to mouthpiece for when I'm playing on mutes. If I'm using mutes, my normal commercial piece is too tight to play efficiently with mutes. So this is the mouthpiece that I use if I'm playing with mutes in for most of the night. It's medium tight, but it's not too tight. It's just open enough that I can put that little bit of extra air that the mutes require to play. And, here's my jazz mouthpiece for modern jazz, or when I want kind of a fluffy, rich, dark sound. That's a 26 throat. Cup and rim are taken from Chet Baker's Mount Vernon 6B. Large backbore. I have a Monk sound sleeve. Monk. Gold plated. Nice and fluffy sound. And then for even darker than my Baker mouthpiece, it's vintage Frank Holton, Elkhorn, Wisconsin, 66, with a Holton tone intensifier on it. It's about a 26 or a 25 throat, C cup with a bit of a double cup to it. This was the mouthpiece I used for most of my career with Miss Jubilee and the Humdingers until 2015 or 2016. I used this piece and pretty much only this piece for 2 or 3 years straight. I moved to something a little bit easier to play, which was the Marcinkowigs. This is a new one I just got, which is another 66, but it's slightly newer. The stamping convention is a little more sloppy. This one has a slightly more comfortable rim than the first one, a little bit more rounded in the bite, a little bit of a softer bite, and the cup is just fractionally deeper, just like maybe 1% deeper. I kind of like the way this one sounds more. I need to true this the end of this backbore. It's not quite perfectly round, but the backbore is a little bit smaller. The cup is just a tiny bit deeper than my first Holton 66, and the rim is just a little bit more comfy. So this one is interesting. I can get, if I play this at a forte, like a classical forte, I can get an amazing sound out of this. But it's, again, just like the first Holton. This is not a mouthpiece that's designed for the upper register. It's designed for maybe a high D at the highest. You're really not getting much help beyond that. It's made for playing in the staff with a big, rich sound. And then we got my studio piece, or my main commercial piece. No writing on it. No writing on it anywhere. Check that through it. According to Terry Warburton, this is a 34 throat. Very small backbore with a thick shank terminus. Soft bite, inner and outer on the rim. And it's a double cup. Very shallow double cup. 34 throat. Very tight backbore. Very elegant blank. Extremely easy to play. Gets a sizzle with the least amount of effort applied. If you play this with less than perfect technique, it'll back up on you, and immediately your chops will stop responding. So it's very, very demanding. you have to play flawlessly. You have to play with very little error, perfect chop placement. If you play it with less than perfect technique, it won't work at all. Some people think that it takes better technique to play bigger mouthpieces. That's actually incorrect. The smaller the mouthpiece, the tighter the mouthpiece, the better your technique has to be. Because there's less room for error. There's less room for muscling and forcing the mouthpiece. You have to play with better technique to use smaller gear, not the other way around. And if I want to get almost a trombone sound, this Besson number 7, which is actually an alto horn mouthpiece. I think it says, yeah, made in England. Pretty big back bore, but short. And I have to put my tuning slide in all the way. Look at that. It just swallows my freaking finger. Deeper than most flugelhorn cups. That's probably a 20 or a 19 throat. But it's really made for alto horn, but I can approximate a trombone sound. And this rim is just so perfect. Look at how finely sculpted the bite is on this. It's a work of art. I would like, when I have money for my own custom mouthpiece line, I want Doug McVeigh at Venture Mouthpieces to make the mouthpiece that I have a rim that is like this, but just scale it down a little bit so it's not quite as wide, because this is really, really wide. That's because it's such a big diameter. But if he could get the rim as soft as this, but just make it like percentage wise scaled down to like this size, but that same taper. Look at the way it tapers down. So the high point of this rim is actually a little bit more towards the outside of the rim, but that it tapers. Let's see if I can make it zoom in on this. It's such a subtle curve, and it's so comfy. This is a super comfy mouthpiece. It's gigantic. It's about, I'd say it's probably like 770 or 760. It's huge on the inside. If I can compare this with my lead mouthpiece, I mean, this is not a narrow diameter, but this guy is just humongous. Most trumpet players can hardly play on this thing. It's so big on the inside. But I love it. It gets me that trombone-y sound on my trumpets. I just put in my tuning slide all the way, pop this sucker in, and I'm mostly in tune. And I've actually played this thing up to an E flat above high C on trumpet. It takes a ton of work, and it's a very thin note, but I can play a high C on it. It's just really, really, I really have to push pretty hard. So those are my main mouthpieces. I call this my studio set.